What's up guys? Today we're back at a quick short oil change video. I'll show you how to do an oil change on this 1999 Toyota Camry, but this will basically apply to any 90s Camry with a 4-cylinder as well as early 2000s. So all you'll need for this job is your oil filter, jack and jack stand so you can lift up the front of the vehicle, and a 14mm socket and ratchet, or you can just use a 14mm wrench. That'll be good enough. Now you may also need an oil filter wrench. I know mine is not too tight because I changed the oil last, but if a shop changed the oil last, they might have over tightened it, and so you can either use giant pliers and or adjustable pliers and try and get this off, or an oil filter wrench from your local auto parts store will do the trick. So let's get started. Alright, so before you jack up the car, you want to pop the hood just so you can have access to everything. There we go. Alright, so before you jack up your car, locate your jacking spot. As you can see on this car, there's a little hump right there on the front radiator support. You can jack it up right there. Alright, so now that you got your car jacked up, one thing I forgot to mention you'll need is a drain pan, an oil drain pan, so that you can drain your oil, obviously. So what you want to do is slide under. Alright, so once you slide under, you want to locate your oil drain pan. Don't confuse it with the transmission drain pan, and you really can't because the oil is going to be a 14mm. And so you want to set your ratchet to loosen, put it on there, and simply pull on it. Hopefully it's not too tight, so simply pull on it, it'll break loose, and then you can undo it by hand. So you want to loosen it by putting upwards pressure at the same time. That way you can keep the oil in there, and then once you feel it loose, just pull it out and oil should drain right out. Now while you let the oil drain, I like to wrap my drain bolt in a paper towel and just put it somewhere where it's safe. And also while the oil is draining, I like to remove the oil filter and let that drain, although not much should come out because this oil filter sits upright, so it is pre-drained. But you want to make sure that there's not too much debris around there. As you can see, there's some acorns and debris there, but it's in those grooves of the engine block, so that's fine. Just don't move it around while the oil filter is out. So now that we have this one out, we can throw it away and put the new one on. Now with the new oil filter, what you want to do is dip a clean finger, preferably with a glove, in fresh oil, and then you want to lubricate all around this rubber gasket. That way it helps make a good seal, but it also helps you take it off next time you have to do an oil change. Otherwise it might stick to the block, and that's not good. But this also helps seal it better. Alright, so simply slide this one in. Usually you'd want to fill an oil filter if possible. Obviously in this case it's not possible because this one sits upside down, and so it will all drain out as you try and put it in, but that's okay because the engine was designed for this. So make it snug and then try and give it another quarter of a turn. I'm turning it with the same glove that I have oil on, so I'm going to have to take a paper towel, clean it up, and use my other hand for that. But basically you want to give it another quarter of a turn after it's bottomed out. Actually, I think I just got it, and that's good right there. You don't want to make it too tight, because then, number one, you'll probably strip the threads on either the oil filter or the fitting that comes out of the block, or you'll make it so tight, and this is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is stripping the threads. Best case scenario is making it so tight that next time you have to do an oil change, you'll need an oil filter wrench for it, and you should not need an oil filter wrench to take it off. Alright, so once the oil is all drained, get your drain plug, thread it back in, and you just want to make it snug, and then give it another maybe 1/8 of a turn. Alright, so that's snug, and then I'm going to go, there we go, another 1/8 of a turn, and that's good. You don't want to make it too tight, these threads will strip easily. Alright, now you can take the car off the jack stand. Alright, so now that you've removed the oil drain from the bottom of the car and taken off the jack stands, you can remove the oil filler cap. And I strongly suggest that you get yourself a funnel, because in some vehicles you don't need to, but in this one you really do, because it's all the way in the back there and it's a little difficult to get to. Make sure your funnel is clean of any debris. I like to keep mine in a tied up plastic bag, a grocery bag, just to make sure I keep any debris out of it. Just put it there. Now keep in mind, this engine, the 5SFE, does not like to take the oil in fast. It's at a weird angle, and the valve cover has a little plate down here right under the hole for the oil fill. So it goes in pretty slow, so keep that in mind as you pour the oil in. Alright, so take your oil. This vehicle takes about 4.5 quarts with a new oil filter. I'm using 10W30. You can use 5W30 or 10W30. That's what's recommended in the manual for this car. I'm using 10W30 because it's an older vehicle and it likes to burn a little oil when it's cold on startup, and I think the 10W30 will help it out. It actually says in the manual here you can use 5W30 or 10W30. 5W30 preferred just because it can run at all temperatures, but you can use 10W30 if the outside temperature is anywhere from 0 degrees Fahrenheit or -18 Celsius higher. And in the climate where this car lives, it's rarely going to be under 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So I will use 10W30. Alright, so I actually put 4 quarts in right now. The last of it is currently draining. Like I said, it is very slow at going into the engine. I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to pull the dipstick out and measure the level of oil in there. I'm actually going to pull it out now. That way I can clean it and get it ready. But as you can see here, it's already pretty much at the full line. So let's clean it off, check the oil level, and I think for our case 4 quarts should be good. Now, because there's no oil in the oil filter, you do want it to be right about at the full line. So let's check it, start the engine, and make sure everything's good. Alright, take the funnel out, make sure it's all drained, put it somewhere fairly clean, right there. Get the oil cap, make sure there's no debris on it. Screw that in, make it tight. Well, just snug. And actually, if you're ever concerned about what oil you should put in, it will always say it on the cap on Toyotas. Alright, now to check the oil, just pull out the dipstick, wipe it off, make sure it's clean on both sides. And this side we're going to have a one line here and then one line here. This one is going to say L and this one F, low and full. Oh. Dip the dipstick into the tube and then pull it right out gently. And as you can see, not sure how well you can see this, but we seem to be right on the full line, which is actually perfect. So 4 quarts for this vehicle is good. Put the dipstick back in, clean off any residual oil that dripped as you were filling the engine with oil. And it's important to keep things clean, that way you know if there's ever any leaks. I like to double check my oil filter, my dipstick, and my filler cap, as well as the drain plug before I start it. That's just some oil that dripped from draining it, but alright, so everything checks out. Let's start the car and see how it runs. Alright, so we're going to start the car, and what we want to look for is the oil pressure light, which is that light right there, right next to the battery light. That's the oil pressure light. As soon as we turn on the car, we want to see that go off within a couple seconds. And there we go. Light is off. All is good. We have no other warning lights except for the windshield washer fluid light, but that's its own issue. And then the seatbelt light, obviously, because I don't have my seatbelt on, so I'm not going anywhere, but everything is good. We want to let it run for maybe 5 to 10 seconds or so, just to let the oil circulate, and then shut it off, and then you want to check the oil again. Now, after you do that, you want to write down your mileage. I like to put these stickers right here, just to remind myself or other people that I change the oil for of their oil change interval. And that's it. Oil change is done. Stay tuned for more.